There is no MMO as unfinished as vanilla WoW, and that is part of the charm and the reason why we love vanilla. But Classic Plus, being on the horizon, whether that's 1 year or 5 years, has so much content it needs to finish, and in this video we are covering the raids. And oh boy, are there a lot of raids that vanilla WoW needs to cover. Because for Classic Plus to be the success that we want it to be, there needs to be essentially infinite horizontal progression, and that comes in the form of raids. Now, everybody knows about Karazhan Crypts and Karazhan Tower as a whole, but there are plenty of other locations that we have to deep dive and discuss just how they should be finished, what they should look like, and how they should be phased into Classic Plus. Now, you can watch this video for both vanilla reasons and wanting to hear about the unfinished vanilla content as well as the future of vanilla. So, right off the bat, we are going to open up with Hyjal. Now, Hyjal is both a zone, multiple dungeons, a fuck ton of quest lines, new racial cosmetics, and things of that nature. It is more than just a raid. But in today's video, we are covering the raid itself, and there are two possible raids in Hyjal. Now, I'm going to count them as one raid, just for the sake of this video, but we are going to touch on both concepts. Now, the very first raid is the Barrow Dens. Now, this was a raid designed to be essentially where Illidan's prison was from Warcraft 3, things of that nature. You deep dive all the way down underground to find remnants of the Bear Druids, the corruption, the Wardens. Now, the Barrow Dens could either be the quotation marks 40-man raid or the 10/20-man raid, the filler raid. In this context, I'm going to say it could go either direction, but I'm going to describe it. Now, as I said, Illidan's prison, the Wardens, the corrupted Nightmare, prisoners, Furbolgs, the demon corruption affecting Hyjal. There are so many avenues you can go with for this dungeon in terms of bosses, NPCs, quest lines, and just how you can flesh it out and finish it. But me personally, I think they should go down the Night Elf Separatist movement, because we knew from the beginning that there was a big Night Elf Separatist movement that hated both the Horde and the Alliance equally, and did not think that the Alliance should join with the Alliance and that they should stay separate or neutral at best. And the Night Elves joined the Alliance, as we know in lore. So they could go down this pathway. The Night Elf Separatists, the Wardens, who are very neutral and aggressive to both factions and both parties, they could be the major villains of this quest line and the story. Now, are the Wardens necessarily villains? No, they're just incredibly rigid, uptight individuals who have a mission, and that mission is prime focus for them. Nothing else matters. You could have Maev's left sister, right sister, whatever you want to call them. There's a whole bunch of Wardens. Be there trying to keep the mission focused. There is prisoners that need to be imprisoned and kept in their chains. This is 10,000 years of prison. Think of the amount of immortal bastards stuck down in these prisons. Illidan is just one individual. Who else was kept chained down here? How many other people are being kept in this godforsaken prison? Now, I went on a mild tangent there, a mild rant, but we're going to continue on to the second part of Hyjal, Archimonde's Skull, and essentially the battle for Hyjal. Now, this is essentially a Caverns of Time raid. It was designed and initially meant to be part of vanilla. Now, if you look at the old quest lines and lore tidbits left over from previous conversations, interviews, books left over by the devs, you were meant to defeat the Legion remnants in Hyjal, stop them from resurrecting Archimonde, and save Azeroth. Because remember, back in vanilla, we were essentially continuing from Warcraft 3, and Archimonde is invincible. If Archimonde is resurrected, there are no more billion wisps to explode and ancestors to go to the heavens once again. Literally, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Night Elf ancestors rushed Archimonde, tightened up around him, squeezed his butt cheeks, and exploded, detonating Hyjal. That's how he killed Archimonde. If they resurrect Archimonde in the vanilla lore, we're not stopping him. He is invincible by essentially every weapon. Dude is a walking monstrosity, literally God on Earth. Now, is he stronger than an old god? I don't actually know. Old lore is kind of wonky. Now, they did expand the lore and change a lot of things as they kept on going and developing World of Warcraft, but old lore was wonky. There was no Archimonde being this strong, old gods being this strong. Everything was the who knows? So the second raid would have likely been the Caverns of Time experience of Archimonde and the ending of Warcraft 3. But that is Hyjal, and that is one of 7 raids I'm talking about in this video today. So we are going to go on to the next one. And this next one, juicy. Is it as juicy as Hyjal? No, but there is more to cover. And this location is Batol. Now, I've made videos about Batol before. I've talked about it a lot. And Batol was meant to be a mega location like Black Rock Depths and the Black Rock Mountain. Huge, multifaceted, multi-encompassing location. Multiple dungeons, raids, quest lines, stories, the whole shebang. But Batol never got finished. It never got expanded. And it did become something in Twilight Highlands and Cataclysm, but it was never the original expansion and focus that Batol was meant to have. Now, for Batol as a location, there is a lot for them to do. And when I say this, I do mean that. Now, I'm not going to talk about every possible dungeon or raid or location they could do inside Batol. That is going to be a 1.5 to 2 hour long video in the distant future. It's been a pain in my ass. I'm not even close to finishing it yet, but eventually I will release it. But we are going to talk about the raid itself. Now, Batol has both Xal'atath at the depths of it, as well as multiple orc clans still inside of it. Alexstrasza trying to cleanse it with the red dragons. You have the Void focus, the old dwarves and the old god lore. And then you have the Wildhammer remnants, the orcish clans. Again, there is a lot happening within the Batol. Now, as many of you know, lore-wise, the Wildhammers abandoned it after the Dark Iron dwarves nuked it with the Void. And then, you know, long story short, Ragnaros gets summoned like a couple of years later. The whole shebang. Dwarven lore is fucked. It's like House of Cards. It's like Game of Thrones. Dwarven lore is spicy. But in this context, there could be two raids, and I want to focus on one of them in particular, and that is the upper level of Batol. And that would be the Orcish War, and that would be the Dragonmaw clan, and the remnants of the Dragonmaw clan within Batol fighting off the green and red dragons. Well, in this case, just red. I don't think there are green dragons there as of this moment. So anyways, we go inside. We see the Dragonmaw. Now, in this part of the lore, they are hostile to the Horde. There is no Garrosh yet, so there is no the Dragonmaw joining the Horde. They are violent, they are angry, and they enslave the red dragons for a long time, using the Dragon Riders to literally burn down the Alliance fleets and essentially help conquer the Eastern Kingdoms back during the Second War. But again, as I'm saying, there's a lot to consider here, and there's a lot of lore and variation that could go in. We know on the bottom part, at the very depths of Batol, is Xal'atath's dagger. She has not been rescued from Batol as of yet in Vanilla's lore. That happens later on. So in Classic Plus, they could do two dungeons in Batol, one being the lower level, diving through the void, corruption, and all the darkness and the gimmickiness, fighting the old gods, the faceless ones, and things of that nature, getting down to the depths, rescuing Xal'atath, and then triggering the current storyline as we know it in modern day in lore, because she was rescued from Batol eventually by adventurers. But they could also save that for a much later phase. There's no one saying that you need to have all the raids and dungeons open from launch. They could essentially do phase 6 being Batol's upper dungeon and raids, and then phase 11 being Batol's lower portion. They could come back to it and expand upon it later. Batol is ginormous. Then you have the Dark Iron Highway and things of that nature. There are so many lore avenues and raid locations and dungeon locations that they could go through with, that this video, if I was deep diving every aspect of Batol, like I said, would be a 2-hour video. So we are going to move on to a very short segment, the Dragon Isles. That's right, the Dragon Isles was meant to be in vanilla. It was meant to be a huge zone, a ginormous skull island, huge remnants and things that essentially got used later on within Dragonflight and whatnot. Now, the Dragon Isles as a location, as a raid, is kind of hard to do properly, but it is something that they really should finish eventually at some point in time. In my idea, in my opinion, how they should finish the Dragon Isles is finishing the Dragon Isles zone is essentially way too much effort and work. It's why the devs scrapped it in the first place. It would take months of artistic effort, energy, and collaboration to get the Dragon Isles even being remotely good looking in vanilla. They should make a raid that ties to the Dragon Isles, and essentially seeing the force field that protects the Dragon Isles in retail, they should keep that idea and make it a raid that's meant to get to the Dragon Isles, but we sink and then we have to fight our way back, yada yada yada, and that is the raid. The failed expedition to the Dragon Isles. And that should tie into Northern Stratholme and being a launching bay in a zone with like some high elves and blood elves left over. We should collaborate with them, storylines, arcs, quest lines, to get to the Dragon Isles and then fail and then have to fight our way through sea creatures, dragon monsters, things of that nature. Because remember, the Dragon Isles are literally just northwest of Azeroth, of the Eastern Kingdoms. You can literally see them on the old map. Now, to be fair, those 4 little islands could also be the Broken Islands, but the devs initially, based off old Eastern Kingdom maps, it looks like it was meant to be the Dragon Isles, and then they moved things around a bit here or there. So it is kind of finicky. It could go either direction. The devs have both confirmed that this was the Dragon Isles as well as the Broken Isles and yada yada yada. So either way the Classic Plus devs want to do it, they could do it that way. Now, if they were going to do the raid on the Dragon Isles itself, I feel like they should make an instance portion of landing on the island so you can't actually explore the whole thing, because that should be its own expansion or zone down the line in the future. And they should make it more focused on landing there, fighting dragons, getting kicked off the island, or just having a little landing point, fighting a couple of corrupted dragonids or whatnot. There are storylines they can do, but it should be done carefully, because this is, as a location, ginormous and completely unfinished. It's more than just a raid. It is an experience, and I don't know the best way for their devs to carry on with the Dragon Isles, but they should utilize it in Classic Plus, because that's what Classic Plus is, finishing off Vanilla Azeroth. And oh boy, oh, do we have so much more to talk about right now, because the next point of topic is Uldum. That's right, sand. It's coarse, it's rough, and it gets everywhere. Yes, Anakin, we hate it too, but Uldum as a location is essentially old Titanic facility, and that is a pun that is intended. Uldum as a raid, I don't think was ever meant to be a big one. I kind of feel like Uldum was meant to be a one boss raid. Again, we can neither confirm nor deny, because Uldum as we know it became a whole ass zone that had its own separate things within Cataclysm. But OG Uldum had multiple facets and planning to it. It was meant to be a Titan facility, but I don't know if it was meant to be a Titan dungeon with a raid boss at the end. Now, in my personal opinion, they should make this more similar to Onyxia or the Storm Vault or things of that nature. One boss or 3 bosses, kind of limited in scope, but a nice little sub-location. Not every raid, not every dungeon needs to be this megalithic, huge project. Part of Classic's appeal was some shorter, easier content. ZG, AQ20, Onyxia, world bosses, the green dragons, things of that nature. That's what made Vanilla's world feel so exciting, was that not everything was a 6-12 hour experience and instance. Some things were short and fun, and that's what they should do with Uldum. Now, again, they could make Uldum like a 7-8 boss raid, fully developed, fully expanded, huge ass Titan facility. You go deep down into the earth, and maybe at the end of it, it opens up into Uldum the zone. But again, that is a lot of work and effort, and we are not there yet, because right now all they need to do instead of adding new zones is finishing the existing ones that need to be finished. But there isn't much more to talk about Uldum. Uldum is what it is. We already have the quest lines leading from Ulduman to Uldum, the discs and all that stuff. There are stories and juicy content there to expand upon and finish. But that is Uldum as a whole. It's great, it's cool, but we are going to move on to the next thing, Karazhan. Now, Karazhan is a bit more than one raid. It's like 3 raids or 2 raids in a dungeon, or 1 raid and 2 dungeons, or like 1 raid, 2 dungeons, a world boss, or there is a whole bunch of combinations they can do there with Karazhan. Because OG Karazhan was fucking obscenely massive. It was as big as Molten Core X2. You had Karazhan Crypts, then you had Karazhan Tower, and Karazhan Tower is obscenely big. Pointlessly big for no reason. Now, OG Karazhan was meant to have portals leading to other dimensions. That's right, you heard me correctly. The devs essentially designed Karazhan to be this massive, obscene megastructure, kind of similar to Batol and Blackrock Mountain. So in Classic Plus, what should they do? And that's a good question, but I think they should open up with Karazhan Crypt as either a dungeon or raid. I prefer a raid personally, and they should start with Sod for the Karazhan Crypt raid. And then from Karazhan Crypt in a later phase do Lower Karazhan, and then in a later phase do Upper Karazhan. They should add a world boss at some point as well, but essentially Medivh's journeys, Medivh's nightmares, these alternate realms and reality, these other planets, these demonic species. So many ways to expand the lore of Azeroth, expand the lore of Classic, without being essentially leaving the planet. Small pocket instances, pocket locations, things of that nature would make Karazhan great. Heck, they could even make Upper Karazhan a hub location, with little quest lines for other planets, for example, the Emerald Dream locations or Outlands or things of that nature. They can create little pocket zones within Classic. Now, this is kind of straying from the Classic formula a lot. The reason Karazhan wasn't finished in Classic was because the designer John Stats put way too much time and energy into Karazhan, and they ran out of time to finish his vision. And then come TBC, guess what they did? They made that shit a lot smaller because he put way too much time and energy into developing this ginormous Karazhan that just wasn't what they needed it to be. Personally, for me, I think Karazhan should be a 3 raid, 4 or 5 dungeon, a couple world bosses. Just make it a huge megalithic experience that spans multiple phases. Classic Plus is meant to be horizontal, forever expanding, mild power growth with each new phase, more dungeons, more raids, constantly experiencing more and more content without ever leaving vanilla. That is the key wording there, never leaving vanilla. But I'll expand more upon horizontal progression in a different video. We're just talking about all the raids and experiences as of this moment. Now, like I said, Karazhan Crypts, I made a couple of videos about it. Everyone else has as well. A lot of stuff you can do there. Medivh's nightmares, his trauma, all that stuff. Echoes of Sargeras, demonic corruption, Medivh's madness. There's 10, 15 bosses they could throw down there. Heck, they could even do 6 bosses, 5 bosses. They could make it a 10-man or a 20-man raid. It doesn't have to be a 40-man giga raid. They could save that for the tower itself. And as for the tower itself, I will cover that in more detail in another video because I do plan on doing a whole hour write-up of what Karazhan should be, every floor, every room, using the old maps and breaking down each location step by step. But not on this one, because this video is already long as fuck as it is. And we have more places to cover. We're not done yet. I said 7 raids. You're going to get 7 raids. So we are going to move on to the Scarlet Enclave. Now, most of you are like, the Scarlet, that was never an unfinished raid, but it was. Now, when Azeroth was being designed, there was 2 Scarlet locations, Scarlet Monastery and the Scarlet Enclave. Now, what does that mean? So they had the Scarlet Cathedral as its own separate raid location and Monastery as a dungeon, a level up dungeon for the Forsaken. Now, they scrapped the Scarlet Monastery and the Cathedral and they merged it into one location, Scarlet Monastery that we have in-game right now. And the Scarlet Cathedral raid idea, gone. We just got the Cathedral wing with an SM. And honestly, I get why they did it. A lot of content, a lot of scrap things. That's what vanilla is made of, abandoned content and ideas. That's why vanilla is so mysterious and amazing. So many places just stop at a random standstill that makes no sense because time. Time is the one currency we do not have enough of. That was way more wise than I had any need to be. Anyways, the Scarlet Enclave in this context, I essentially would put it at Tyr's Hand, Tyr's Fall, whatever you guys want to call it. There are ways they can do this, but essentially just instance off Tyr's Fall and then go behind it. Explore the old Scarlet location that was built in Wrath of the Lich King. You guys know the location I'm talking about. There's juicy content there. Make it a whole 10, 12, 14 boss experience. Heck, in fact, I would like for the classic devs to take a big risk in this and make a raid that takes longer than a day. Oh my god, Eben, that's controversial. I know. They should make a 16 boss raid that takes like 12 hours to finish, and essentially they should split into 2 wings. Wing 1 and Wing 2. And you as a raid team have to pick, are we doing Wing 1 or Wing 2? And you actually have to choose. You can't do a 12-hour raid in one day. No one has that kind of fucking time. But if you want to be a sweaty bastard, do it. It'd be fun. You could reward the sweat and the casuals. Make it a fun location. Make it massive. The Scarlets are ginormous as an experience. It goes pretty far fucking back as a zone and idea. And what kind of bosses could they have? Some controlled by the Scourge, some controlled by the Forsaken, some controlled by the Burning Legion. There are plot points there that could be interesting and make it, exciting. Some alliance friendly, some horde friendly, trying to convert the Scarlets to your side and your faction. They could make it a little faction warfare. It could be interesting. And there's no reason for it to be simple. Scarlet Crusade as a whole experience should have more content and be a bigger experience part of the class world. Because they are for the most part high level and max level enemies because they are level 50 plus for the most part. Again, they could also do things like the burning of Anderhal, tie into the past when the Scarlets were first forming up and the survival of the Scarlets and what they became. They could in fact even do a raid where you go back in time and help the Scarlet Crusade found itself. The remnants of Lordaeron's military, the Knights of the Silver Hand and things of that nature, coming together, allying with all the different remaining human organizations, fighting off Arthas or trying to survive in this case, and then the foundation and forming of the Scarlet Crusade. That could be an amazing raid in of itself, which ties into the next point, the Caverns of fucking Time. Now, this is a controversial place, but the Caverns of Time was meant to be in vanilla. In fact, the Black Morass was meant to be a vanilla dungeon or a raid, we're not sure yet, nobody really remembers. But the Caverns of Time was meant to be in vanilla, and you were meant to go and explore all the bronze dragon things in the different alternate timelines and things of that nature. And that sounds cool, that sounds amazing, top tier baller content when you think about it. But I want to discuss more about making new content in the Caverns of Time rather than finishing off the old content, because the devs abandoned Caverns of Time pretty early after building it. The Caverns of Time as a location is essentially properly built. In fact, there is a pathway walking up to the Black Morass. It wasn't just a portal you went through, you actually had to walk up to the Black Morass instant and zone itself. It was a very interesting start. Much better than what we got in TBC in my opinion. I don't know why they scrapped it. Sure, it's a 10-minute walk to TBC, to the Black Morass, but I think it was cool. But I think they should embrace the Caverns of Time and go back in time to other locations. The Siege of Orgrimmar, the Siege of Stormwind, the Foundation of Orgrimmar, things of that nature. Second War, and just so many cool instances and locations they could make a ginormous raid out of in the Caverns of Time. Now, if they do want to do the Caverns of Time as a raid based off the OG concepts, Black Morass would have to be a raid, but I don't know how good that would be or how fun of an experience it would be. The gate constantly sending in more orcish hordes, having to fight off mobs of enemies and creatures, things of that nature. Still a good idea, a good concept, but it's something we should consider when it does come to the Caverns of Time is they should embrace it to finish off other parts of the world that need to be expanded upon. And that is just my opinion. Now, everyone else has a different opinion about the Caverns of Time. Whether you hate the time travel, I get it, it's gimmicky, it's goofy. Chromie used to be an interesting character, and now she's a child in a 10,000-year-old dragon's body. Every lollicon's fucking fantasy. But the point I'm trying to say is the bronze dragons don't have to be gimmicky or cringy or weird. They could be interesting and amazing looks into alternate versions of Azeroth and what that could have been and what that should have been like. There are so many amazing lore points that I am beyond excited for the future of Classic Plus, and I hope you guys are too. But before I end the video, I want to talk about an honorary mention. The Black Temple. That's right, Illidan's Black Temple was meant to be in vanilla. You heard me correctly. They originally designed Outland to have the Black Temple and to be there as a raid instance. A max level raid, I don't know what phase it was meant to be. Blacketh Temple was meant to be in vanilla and Illidan was meant to be its last boss. What would that even look like in vanilla? I actually don't know because they never made an Illidan model, they never finished Outland, they never finished Hellfire Peninsula, they never even did an Illidan model of any kind. So essentially the entire thing is completely and utterly conceptual. But there's no reason why we can't do a small foray into Outland at some point within the vanilla ecosystem in Classic Plus. It shouldn't be a full foray, it should be a small quest line, like you take a portal, it's a small 5-man dungeon, you see Illidan at the end of it going, "You are not prepared," and then banishing you from Outland, closing your little portal and sending you back. And that could lead to TBC's events in the future and whatnot. It should be utilized to some degree. How much, debatable, but it is something to keep in mind. But thank you all for watching. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was entertaining and interesting. If it was, like and subscribe. If it wasn't, subscribe and hate every video anyways. Thank you all for watching. Ebonheart out. Peace.